Hell Is Us from developer Rogue Factor and published by Nacon has just released a demo at the time of recording. It was yesterday, the 2nd of June, and this demo has taken what I think was a whatever Souls-like and made it into something completely different and might well be now my most anticipated game of the year. And I'm being completely serious here. This video is basically just to go over the demo a bit, just to show you a bit of gameplay, talk about a few of the systems and the way that it mixes up the usual Souls-like formula and makes it something a little bit more fresh and something that is genuinely quite interesting as opposed to just another Souls-like. Straight off the bat, I was very surprised about how many cutscenes there were in the game. There was a very intriguing opening cutscene that definitely gave a bit of mythos to the world and a bit of lore to the world without actually really having to do anything. I do think the main character's haircut is absolutely ridiculous. However, I do think that it was a very strong start, and it seems very much a story-focused game as it first starts out. And there is a lot of heavy emphasis on a lot of detective work, which we'll get into in a minute. But it does quickly devolve into Souls-like combat, so I'm not sure whether it's just the demo was trying to get across the combat to the Souls-like fans, or whether it was a case of the actual detective work and things like that are just really light touching here. One of the few things that I thought was interesting straight off the bat as I was setting things up is you can pick from 3 different difficulty options. So you can have a really easy time, you can have the balanced option, which is what I picked on my playthrough, or you can have the hard option, which basically is just for the masochists. Essentially the way that the gameplay works is there's a bit of detective work alongside the Souls-like combat. So it is very much a Souls-like game. I don't think there's anyone who's going to be able to sort of argue against that. It is definitely Souls-like in nature, but it does have a lot of things like talking to people, almost like an Atomfall style system of talking to people where you'll have certain leads that you will track on a board on your little PDA device thing. And essentially what you'll do is you'll be looking at different leads, you'll be getting different clues that point you in certain directions for the story. There is no markers or waypoint or HUD in that sense at all. So it does warn you straight off the bat. You have to pay attention to your surroundings, listen to what people say. The tree itself doesn't look that easy to navigate, but it does have all the relevant details in there. So if someone said something in passing in a conversation that you need to know, it will be in that tree, so you're not going to be sat stuck for hours trying to figure out what it was that the person said, just because they won't sort of say it again. There is a lot of world building here, there's a lot of environmental storytelling, but there is actual NPCs to have actual conversations with, where you can talk to them about different things in the world. There's stuff on the left that will progress the story, then there's stuff on the right, which is literally just them expositing world building, which I think is pretty handy to have, because a lot of the stuff you'll sort of wait for a Vati video on any sort of Souls-like game to be able to understand what the actual lore of the world is, whereas here it just gives you it straight up front, here is what the world is. So the game's set in a very, very somber and dark world. It's during a civil war between 2 factions after the president unalives themselves, and there's some sort of cataclysmic event that means that these weird creatures are also in the world, and it's very, very rough, it's very, very grim, totally my cup of tea though. The one thing I will note is the performance was a bit shaky. I don't see this hitting 60 FPS on console in its current state. It was very much 60 frames but with drops here and there when I had things set to very high on my very high-end PC. Ultra, I could not record a single piece of footage, and the frame rate was very choppy, so I think the reason that this demo released only on PC is probably because they haven't managed to optimize it for console just yet. I do hope they manage to get a performance mode for consoles, because when you're hitting 60 FPS in these fights, it looks unreal, and I think it would just be a waste to see it on 30 FPS on console. But I imagine with any luck they'll have 2 modes. They'll have the performance mode, and then they'll have the graphics mode, as they usually do with these sorts of things. But yeah, I don't think that they're going to be able to hit 60 FPS as it currently stands, but they've got until September to figure this out. So I imagine that's the reason they didn't release the demo on there, because it probably looked pretty rough. That being said, the reason why it's going to be rough and the reason why there's been some FPS drops for me is because of how visually stunning this world is. Honestly, when I first got into the first little open bit with the house, it looks unreal with the rain coming down. There's puddles that actually react to you walking in it. The mud reacts to you walking in it. They've put a lot of effort into creating the world and how it looks, but there's also just a high fidelity of graphics that I don't think I've seen in a Souls-like before. It honestly, it looks ridiculously good. And the enemies themselves, with all the different particle effects going on, and I genuinely had to call it out because I think it's just one of the strangest things about this game is just how realistic it looks. Speaking of the world, it is very, very Death Stranding-like. A mixture of Death Stranding and Returnal, I would say, in terms of the sort of holograms and stuff that you interact with, alongside the music. The music is very Returnal coded, very space, sci-fi, 80s vibe sort of music, you know, those 80s sci-fi films, but the actual world overall is just very dour. It's very post-apocalyptic, but it looks unreal, and I think a lot of people who like Death Stranding, a lot of people who liked Returnal, who also like Souls-like, are going to be eating so good with this one. Last thing to note here on the world and the designs and everything, the creature designs are so cool. They're kind of like Spot from, or The Spot, I can't remember what it was called, from Into the Spider-Verse. But in this instance, they're sort of really creepy, lumbering, flowy people. And they're just so creepy to fight, the way that they move, the way that they actually attack, where it's sort of, they blur as they attack, so it's really hard to tell what they're going to do, how they're going to attack you. And they've added a mechanic with these things called limbic entities, where essentially these white humanoid creatures, they're invincible while this limbic entity's out. And you have to fight this limbic entity, which is essentially, it looks like something out of control, just a mess of geometry, but it's really colorful and really brutal the way that they attack you. You can tell that it's the limbic entities that are the main threat here, rather than the actual humanoid enemies that there are. And they are so fun to fight, but they're also really hard to fight. And I love to see this sort of mix up between white and black. Then the limbic entities are so colorful. It just makes a great contrast and it looks really good. Some of the cutscenes as well, especially the one where someone gets introduced as fighting one of these limbic entities. It just looks like something out of Death Stranding. It looks like something out of Metal Gear Solid, and it's so cool. It's such a great way to introduce a character. So if you get past the world building, the detective style mechanics that we've got so far, the main meat of the game, and you can tell from the gameplay, is that it's a Souls-like. Unfortunately for some, I know that there is a difficulty option to make things easier, and that might make it more palatable to people. But essentially what this is a Souls-like through and through. I don't think it's a boring Souls-like at all. I think it's quite good. The way that the save systems work is everything is saved all of the time, apart from your XP and your weapon XP and the items that you pick up. So if you die and you haven't saved it in a while, then you'll lose those. But for the most part, progression is always saved no matter what, which is great to see. In terms of the actual combat then, it is very standard. You've got, you've got your light attack, you've got your strong attack that you charge up. You've got a drone, which you can use to send out and distract people. And it looks like there's 4 different slots in the drone, which means that you can have multiple different abilities. But it means that when you're attacking, 5, 6 different enemies at once, you can send the drone out to distract some while you're busy fighting with the other ones. And it genuinely makes dealing with groups of enemies a lot easier. So I've got a funny feeling that there's going to be a lot more groups of enemies in this game. There's also a Neo-style key pulse system. Don't know if you remember that one. So the way that the key pulse system worked in Neo is when you used some stamina, you would have a flash of light and you had to press a quick button to make sure that you got your stamina back. Otherwise, you would lose all of your stamina essentially, and you would end up being exhausted mid-combo and then you die. On Hell Is Us, what they have is they have a key pulse type system that also works like a rally system in Bloodborne, which is great. So essentially, if you lose health, you can hit an enemy, and what that'll do is that'll build up some sort of rally-like mechanic. If you press R1 at the right time, you'll then activate the pulse, and that means you'll get your health and stamina back. And what it means for the actual fights itself is that you can sit and fight and trade blows with a good 5 or 6 enemies, and you'll not even feel the difference. You can come out of a fight with like 10 different enemies and you'll still be full health, because you can just regain health mid-fight without having to use any sort of healing item or anything like that. There is healing items, there is consumables, but I think the main part of around combat is regaining that health and stamina whilst you're in the middle of the fight. It's not making you stop the fight and heal. You're supposed to be aggressive. That's the only way you can get health back, is by continuing to attack the enemies. Whilst we're on health and stamina, they're actually tied together, like in Kingdom Come Deliverance. So the more you get hit, the less stamina you will have. The bar goes down together, which essentially means that when you're a 1 hit HP, it means you probably have enough stamina for 1 roll before you get exhausted. So you'll not be able to panic roll when you're in a death state. The idea is you'll have to hit them, regain your health with this pulse, and then keep hitting them and regaining your health. It's the only way it's going to work. I think that might turn some people off because that is a very tough thing to balance. Getting your health and stamina taken away at the same time might feel a little bit unfair in some cases, but I think it'll be great. I think with the way that the pulse works, especially on the balance difficulty, I didn't think it was too hard. So yeah, I just wanted to throw out this video just to sort of give my impressions on the demo, give you a bit more information on what the game's like, because I know that there's quite a few people out there who are on console who aren't able to play the demo itself. So I thought I would give you a bit more information, keep you a bit up to date with what's going on. And I've barely scratched the surface of certain things, so that I haven't talked about the inventory system, I haven't talked about the puzzles, I haven't talked about the gear system. There's a lot of stuff on here that are very sort of surface level. They don't seem that involved, but there are some different bits and pieces to this that I haven't really talked about. So there's far more to talk about in this game. I didn't find a boss, for instance, in the demo. I would definitely keep an eye on this one. This is, as I say, it's probably my personal most anticipated now, maybe after Death Stranding 2. The release date for this is the 4th of September 2025, so you can look forward to that in the coming months. Definitely keep an eye on this one, because this is by far more than your average Souls-like, and it's not just another Souls-like, another indie Souls-like trying to be Dark Souls or Lies of P. I think this is way better than what it may look like on the surface. So please give it a chance, and if the demo does come out for console or you're on PC, I would recommend giving this demo a go just to get the idea of how it works. And that's all I'm going to go through today. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch the video. If you did like it, drop a like, subscribe, comment, all that lovely good stuff to keep me in the algorithm. On the channel I do reviews, I do deep dives, I do topic videos, all sorts of stuff. So have a look around, and if there's anything you like, feel free to have a watch. In the meantime, I have been Gracious Rhino. Look after each other, and I'll catch you soon.